I con this entire family into thinking I'm Pete.
You're getting too close to these people.
Okay.
Greetings, everyone. Nathan Nerdarch here from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. With me, I have a nerd.
I'm Kienata, and tonight we are going to be discussing the mechanics of 5e that we love and the ones that we hate. Hate, loathe.
Yes.
I have my own little micro list. You have your own little micro list.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking to you about the ones that you love and hate. And I actually saw a bunch of discussion already firing through on chat about different stuff that you love and hate, or maybe like and dislike if we'd like to use gentler language.
Yes. If we don't have a fiery passion burning inside of us for
Right.
it, then perhaps you could say the mechanics I like and dislike in 5e. So I'm going to go for the softball one that I like. I think we'll go with that. Or do we want to go with the ones we dislike first?
Oh, we can mix it up. We'll do, if you want to do one you like, we'll do one you like. I'll do one I like. We'll.
I want to just start it off. Psionics. Where are you? Is there anybody out there?
Psionics, hear my cry.
Yes.
Yeah.
I plead to you. Where are you? Come into being. Yes, so no psionics at the start of 5e means that it's the back seat, and it's not even the backseat driver. It's the backseat asleep passenger that they decided not to wake up at the last rest stop.
But you have Fraginator said, shocking, Nate. Shocking.
I agree.
But you have Mystics. Yeah, they're super good.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not okay. What I won't do is I'm not going to hate on the Mystic. There's plenty of that. There's plenty of that on the internet.
Yeah, I guess if you want to hate on the Mystic, just Google it.
Yeah.
You can join the hate fest. There's like angry mobs with torches and pitchforks. Hop in.
Nate and Psionics, shock. Yes, I know. So that's what I'm going to say about Psionics.
Okay.
I'm finished with my hating on them out of that.
Okay.
So, would you like to go next? Confession time.
I love the skill system.
Okay.
The 5e skill system, how they gave all the skills value. And this is one of those items that you see in tons of different tabletop role-playing games where skills fill different roles mechanically. For instance, someone asked a question on our Discord server the other day. That might have been last night. They were asking, I'm making a character for Rifts, and I want to, and this is just an example, I know it's not 5e, but they said, I'm making a character for Rifts and I want to make, and so my first thing was, well, you need to get boxing and athletics. And the reason you get boxing and athletics in this system, instead of just having access to all the skills, essentially, you just pick the ones you want. In that system, you get actual statistical bonuses for getting those skills. So it's kind of a no-brainer. They make you better at other physical skills.
Yeah.
Like why wouldn't you do this just with every character ever? And I like the fact that Dungeons and Dragons doesn't really give you that option. You have varying levels of ability based on your stats, how good you are at skills and stuff. So,
well, that's one of the things I like about the skills as well, is it's not like, here, stack up these skills to just swing your sword harder. It's like they've got the action attack, and what happens in your class is really determining your damage output with the particular items. Not, I've got sharpshooter skill set, plus I've got firing under pressure skill set, and all these other plus wanting to death. Okay, so what I love about 5th edition is how hardcore they were about bound accuracy. And for those of you who don't know what bound accuracy is, that is where they've decided to say, here is a range that we're going to work in, and we're rarely, if ever, going to go out of that range. So your range is your proficiency modifier, which is bound based on level attainment, and it's gone from 2 to 6, right? Then you have your ability modifier, which can go from negative to +5 without like godly intervention or super cool magic items or being a barbarian and awesome.
I do like super cool magic items, but please continue.
Yeah. So, and then on top, another thing. So armor class also is pretty much bounded. You've got 10, 8 for zombies and stuff like that, but zombies don't count. And when there are exceptions to the rule of how crummy their armor class is. Them and like gibbering mouth of things that we fought in that space, the Spelljammer game today. So. So you've got the really crummy armor class of 10, let's say. And then you've got, a 20 is attainable, guy in full plate with a shield, really good monk with maxed out stats in the two stats, barbarian maxed out stats, that kind of thing. And then on top of that, you've got a little bit of difference when you can say magic items. Magic items are completely controlled by the DM. So if he says to himself, I want to actually be able to hit these players every once in a while, and I already have a tank at 20 AC, and then the cleric's buffing him to 22 with Shield of Faith. So, there's certain things, and the nice thing is, again, into that Shield of Faith thing is that's concentration. So I guess I'm already stepping into... I'll talk about concentration. That's another thing I like about 5e. Even though I love playing wizards, I'm glad they bound wizards a bit. So that's what I'm going to say is bounded accuracy and kind of sticking in, not going to rolling checks in which you can swim up a waterfall because they said,
right.
What does a 70 look like on your swim? Like that kind of thing. So I like that we're still playing a fantasy game and it's still make believe, but there's like rules, there's boundaries that rarely ever get crossed.
They controlled everything by paying really careful attention. And I honestly think this is a bleed through from 4th edition. 4th edition numerically was incredibly structurally sound. It was kind of a garbage RPG as a result, but it was incredibly structurally sound, and that's because they ran the numbers. And this is another case. D&D 5th edition has that beautiful bell curve you get from D20 systems, and they actually paid attention to the numbers and said, we want to make sure that we keep everything within a certain range. And to a limited degree, it looks like they even did that with the magic items. You are smiling.
Thanks, Nerdarchy Doug. Doug, the awesome Nerdarchy in chief. Yes, I finally said it correctly. He says, hey, 4E is cool. And I'm going to say, you know what? It looked cool. I didn't play it. But that's not because I was like, oh, 4E. It's just because I did not have an opportunity to play it. And from afar, it looked good. But I understand people's gripes about it, and I understand what people liked about it. So I'm going to say, hey, you know, they had Dark Sun, didn't they?
That hurts. That's a low blow. Yeah, well, okay, all
We
right.
already know what Forgotten Realms is. Let's do some Dark Sun, please. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm still on the please give me Dark Sun in 5th edition bandwagon. I'm still there. And I do not have much love for 4th edition, but I do have a lot of love for the fact that mathematically the game is well balanced. There's lots of things you can do and it's still well balanced. So I don't know. And I give the designers a lot of credit for paying enough attention to come up with that. But anyway, 5th edition, hate. Strongly dislike.
I already said a couple, but well, okay, so I can go back
I can do mine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think sorcery points are really stupid.
Wait.
Like-
really stupid,
like-
or you don't like that they changed the quantity you need to convert to get spell slots, like that kind of.
Right.
Because it was they basically said, well, you can get five sorcery points, right, for a 5th level spell, but to make a 5th level spell slot, it costs more than it does to...
Like 7 or 9 or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, when are you going to get them back? So, I mean, it really didn't matter to me, like, switching them around, right?
Right.
I think that's correct. I'm trying to think now.
We have talked about this before, and I used some incredibly descriptive language to discuss how I felt about it. But basically,
Yeah,
one of the
definitely toned it
golden...
down.
Yeah, one of the golden rules, golden principles in tabletop game design is if you've got something that's 1 to 100, for instance, and you're going to measure your range of success by going every 10 points you do better or every 10 points you do worse. Well, then you should be using a D10 and saying every point you do better, every point you do worse. You shouldn't be complicating things or needlessly adding some convoluted system that doesn't appear to have any obvious use. Sorcery points are a needlessly convoluted system. You could use a 1-to-1 system, change the amount of sorcery points you receive, and end up with the exact same end product.
Well,
Meta magic?
Okay, the problem with that is you get a sorcery point every level, right? And that is really simple. So
yeah.
they kept that simplicity and went the way of making it weird on the craft on creating slots side. But I think that's needlessly strange. They could have just said it costs 1. If they wanted to make it cost more to make slots than it did that you got when you cannibalize slots, they could have said it costs 1 more than the spell level in meta magic points instead of having a chart.
There's 100 easy ways you could do this. The worst case scenario is presenting your players with a conversion table. That was like, when I opened it, I was like, please let this be the only thing that has a conversion table. And as I flipped through 5th edition, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, they did very well almost everywhere else.
Yeah, but that one spot is like old school game design where everything had a table. Like old Warhammer 40K hit tables. If you have a 5 and he has a 6, cross-reference this table to determine what you need to hit. So
yeah, they did fantastic with 5e in that regard of getting rid of tables wherever they could.
Awesome says sorcery points kind of make things weird in my opinion. Using a point-based mana system is a lot cooler in my opinion, which would make sorcery points easier.
So if you had like a spell pool rather than slots?
Right, exactly. I really am a huge fan of spell pools. When I wrote my classless system, I was like, and the 5th edition magic system, throw that away and just started over and wrote my own.
And just did spell pool. Now, spell pool, the issue with that is it's better than slots. Because if you run out of 1st, 2nd, and 3rd level slots and you're like, well, I'm going to cast a spell and it's really a 1st level spell that doesn't get pumped up at all. Nothing is good. Nothing happens when you make it 4th level. It's just a waste. While the spell pool has the advantage of just saying, well, I just still spend a 1st level slot even though I'm out.
Okay. I counter that with, I guess you're right.
Well, we could counter that with sorcerers are kind of, I mean, they're less good than wizards in a lot of ways. So
Well,
you could say like, well, to make up for that, just make them have a spell pool instead of.
right, and then they get all the utility that a wizard doesn't have. A wizard's like flipping through his spell book. What did you memorize today? A sorcerer is like, I'm just going to magically come up with a bunch of random stuff that I want to do. Oh, I have 4 points. I'm going to cast 2 second level spells.
Or I'm going to meta magic something crazy, and it could just be a
exactly.
1-to-1. You spend 1 for the meta magic when necessary, however many you have to spend, and you spend 1 for the spell out of your spell pool. Bam, done. Just to get rid of the slots entirely. But anyway, I don't hate that about sorcerers. I agree with you, and I dislike the fact that they changed the quantity required to build spell slots when it just like really kind of convolutes, makes it kind of weird. So another thing I really enjoy about 5e.
Love. Back on love.
Oh yes, okay, yeah, I love the concentration system, and that's coming from a person who really liked in 3.5 just stacking on the the cat's grace bull string. I had a battle mage that went in
Aid, bless,
to the nine,
straight, bull string.
the deck to the nines with everything. He could go and say, all right, this place is kind of dangerous. I'm feeling like I need to cast all my spells on me. And then I walk out. I got stone skin. I've got all this other stuff on. And I'm a tank with a sword. And I'm a mage. And
that was the
fun.
3.5 cleric demigod where you would walk in because the cleric has like all the buff spells.
Oh yeah, you
so
can just like stack them on you.
Yeah, and I cast like 900 spells on myself, and I have 20s in all my stats.
So I honestly loved doing that in 3.5, but I was also a lot younger. And now, as an older player, I'm looking back and saying, well, as a more experienced player, I'm looking back and saying, I bet that made the fighter kind of feel useless because I could also drop fireballs and have a higher strength than him with a little spell usage. So it kind of like, well, sorry, fighter. I mean, you get a couple attacks. Isn't that cool? Yeah.
I can segue directly into hate with that comment.
So the concentration system.
Yeah.
I love it because I feel like it was a good mitigator of how powerful mages get and how they could stack spells and things like that. And how basically you have to choose strategically what you're going to do in a battle now, rather than just be like, I'm going to slam power, a whole bunch of power duration stuff. And then I'm going to sit back and win. So go ahead.
Let's go to chat. We're neglecting our beautiful people in chat.
Everybody has some great things in here.
Aaron Park said, second edition Stone Skin was the ultimate spell in my opinion. Loved using it though. Stone Skin in second edition.
I think that was the one you just got a certain amount of strikes and they didn't matter.
Oh right, it was. That's so gross.
It was. Well, I mean, it wasn't DR whatever that you got in 3.5.
Yeah.
Like DR something to plus. What was it? DR 10 to +5 magic weapons or something ridiculous. It was good.
Yeah. Just charges on something that are just regard. A Tarask hits you. I lose a charge of Stone Skin. Laugh at the games master. Go back to what I was doing.
I was like, can I, as the GM, can I at least say that you hit a tree after I slapped you through the air with my Tarask? So you lose 2 charges on your Stone Skin?
The equivalent of getting hit by a bus. Like there's no repercussions. Nope, just ka-ting.
Yeah. Just like in the Drizzt novel, it just bounces, and that's it. Oh, okay. Jimmy Keys, prestige classes. I mean, prestige levels. I don't know if he's saying he loves or hates them, but I have to say that I enjoyed prestige classes. I didn't. Okay, like I'm gamist sometimes, but I'm not super gamist when it comes to like the old style planning out 10 feats and like what I'm going to win and which prestige classes I'm going to take. I really like the idea of, hey, do you have a 13 intelligence? You too can be a multi-class spellcaster that does wizardry spells. I like that aspect. I like it to be a lot simpler. I did like the rune. What was he called in the Unearthed Arcana for 5e? The rune guy. I liked that. I liked that it was 5 levels. I thought it was kind of neat. But I guess it didn't get enough love. So they kind of just were like, oh, I guess people don't like prestige classes that much, and they moved on to other stuff. So I like the archetypes. I feel like it's simpler. You can kind of easily see, well, you can, then you have the question, well, you can be a rune guy and a wizard and this other spellcasting class. But rune, it kind of felt like doubling up on spellcaster a bit. But anyway.
Zarift Gaming said superior dark vision. Hate it. That is my everybody seems to have dark vision problem.
Except Dragonborn. I'm going to put that on my dislike list. What kind of dragon descendant are you if you do not have dark vision?
They can, if you're a sorcerer.
Their breath weapon's not that good that they couldn't have slid in. I mean, drow elves, you couldn't have just slid in a little dark vision to that Dragonborn?
As long as drow exists, there's nothing off the table as far as upgrading player races.
As long as elves exist. I mean, just compare Dragonborn to the high elf and you're like, cantrips all day.
Yeah.
And +2 to Dex, which is, I have to say, better than Charisma pluses and
their natural armor is not that good. It is not so good that they shouldn't get dark vision. I mean, honestly, can you really envision a Dragonborn walking through a tunnel with a torch? Like, I can't handle this cave. I need a torch.
I have to say, I picked up Shadow Sorcerer for my Barbarian Dragonborn so that I had dark vision. And because I was like, well, I'm going to be some kind of dragon. So I picked Shadow Sorcerer instead of, I could have picked Dragon Sorcerer, but then that would have been like really doubling up. Well, when you get an alternate way to calculate your AC, and you have to look at the classes that are going to give that to you. And when you see that there's several classes that Dragonborn would like to be, like Sorcerers and Barbarians, they work really well because those, strength and charisma, that already have that, you're kind of saying, well, you're going to double up and it's going to be worthless to you. So it's going to be a really good power that counts for a lot, either as an archetype's ability or a race ability, and it's just doubled up. And it's like, woo. So, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other classes that having AC is good for, like Wizards. Dragonborn Wizards, pretty cool, but again, it's not optimal because you don't get a +2 intelligence. So the things that give the +2 intelligence, it's like Dwarf. Mountain Dwarf gets a +2/+2 because you're pretty much half of your stuff that you get in your racial abilities are doubled up when you do the thing that makes sense to do, like pick fighter. You already have medium armor. Pick a fighter type. You get pluses to con and strength. Like, that's a no-brainer. Be a fighting class. So it makes sense that having medium armor and having all those dwarven weapons doesn't really count as much when you look at Hill Dwarf, what they get. So they got the +2/+2. Totally legit. Dragonborn, I think, should have been like, well, you play barbarians and you can play fighters and you can play, what are the other things? So you're either going to wear armor as a fighter, that's better. You're going to be a barbarian, have armor, or you're going to be the only sorcerer I like out of the player's handbook and pick Dragon Sorcerer.
Ugh, the wings. The wings.
No, I like the wings.
Come on.
All right, I'm done hating on that. But so dark vision would have been really nice to have as a Dragonborn. But then you can say, well, now almost everybody has dark vision at that point.
Alex C said, "You're the DM. You can give the Dragonborn dark vision." And as you will find with many of the things, like for me, if I don't like something, I just change it. And I think that should go for everyone. One of the little preambles in like every D&D player's handbook or DMG is, these are guidelines. If you don't like this, don't do it that way. You're supposed to be having fun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Play the game that you want to play. And if that's D&D 5e, I mean, it's like the first sentence, the first like page has basically, hey, there's all rules. They're pretty much guidelines. Do whatever the heck you want. Take whatever you want. Leave whatever you want. In fact, it says for the 12 classes, these are the most common classes found in the world, basically. But not all of them are necessarily found everywhere. So you feel like you don't want to play with 4 of the classes, please tell your players ahead of time as the DM to let them know, oh, by the way, there's no wizards because I've got something special, or, we're playing Conan, so anybody that casts spells is off the list. They're all bad guys. That's totally legit. I mean, it says it in the book, these are the 12 classes. They're not necessarily everywhere. So we're just this is just kind of a little bit of a gripe session, but also an acknowledgement of what we really like. And also it's like shooting the stuff about...
I can't say enough about the skill system. I think from a mechanics and design standpoint, from the standpoint of someone who tries to build systems like a 5e system, seeing them take the skills and make the skills all valuable so that they come up and are used in gameplay and all have equal value in a gameplay session. I mean, that's really incredible. And that is kind of like masterfully done.
Yeah, if you've got the right DM, if you've got a DM that's going to challenge the players in a different ways, you can make skill challenges that are as hard and dangerous as fights.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. What about the tool system? Because at first I was like, this is borderline silly, but then I kind of got into it and now I like it.
Okay. I thought when I first saw it, it's like, well, how am I supposed to use this? I mean, it's a skill for using tools in the game, but I mean, where the heck am I going to use this? And then it actually comes up, as you get more experience in the game, you're like, well, this wouldn't be stealth. This wouldn't be this wouldn't be that skill. Maybe it would be this particular tool proficiency that this person has. So somebody was a glass blower in one of my games. He had just picked that pre-generated character and it had glass blowing as a tool set. He's like, hey, what kind of stuff do I use to heat the kilns? Because I need something that burns or explodes. And I said, oh, well, you have an idea of what you could use because you're a glass blower. You know that tool set. So you know how to do it. You know what's producing the heat. So I was like, well, right there. That is like a way that I would not have thought. It's basically a knowledge. It's like a knowledge and a proficiency to do a task all in one. So it's a lot wrapped up in it. So I actually like it because it gives a lot of leeway to the player and DM to kind of give a creative solution to a problem when they're kind of like, well, I don't want to just try and hit this with my axe. There's got to be something else I can do because I don't think I can win personally. And then that breeds creativity.
A boulette that's ripping Ben's face off.
I was like, terrified. Well, first round, 2 people are almost dead. This is bad. Yeah. Anyway. It was awesome. It was fun. It was a fun 2 hours.
I also like the fact that the tool system kind of doubles as character history.
Yes, it gives. I think that's
amazing. And Boulé. Boulé.
I agree that I probably, as far as tools are concerned, in the beginning I was like, what in the heck am I going to use this for? Besides, say I'm a guild merchant and I make jewelry. But now I've used it so much in so many different ways that I hadn't envisioned at first. I was like, this is really cool. I like it a lot. I like them better than skills now.
I just see so much value coming out of the skill system in how you can use it, what you can use it for. The fact that as a GM, when I look at someone's talent set, why are you licking that? You're so weird. She's licking my mic stand. That's enough.
Don't get electrocuted.
Yeah, don't get electrocuted. And Doug's like, you will say this word correctly or I will kill you. It's okay. One of my best friends growing up walked up to me and wanted to tell me about Dris Duerden, and he wanted to tell me all about the scimitars that he used because he thought the scimitars were really cool. And I was like, you have to stop saying that word or I can't talk to you. It is so distracting.
Well, I've had someone say scythe before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, but there's so many words. Legit. I mean, it's like an old English word. It's got a lot of history. I'm sure people pronounced it all different kinds of ways over the past.
Chimera, chimera.
Well, okay, so I have to say that after actually learning the science stuff behind what a chimera is, that's the only way I say it from then on. I was talking with I was at a conference with a bioethicist, and he said chimera, and I'm like, all right, that is the way it's said.
Yeah,
no more chimera. I blame Nerdarchy Dave for chimera. But I stopped. It was just a switch went on in my mind. It was like, okay, it's chimera forever now.
Okay. This is not a single mechanic. This is something I have a gripe with, but this is definitely not a small hill. Grumpy and Jan, how you guys doing? This is not a simple thing. This is a larger thing, which I feel like is a failure. But this has never been something that Dungeons & Dragons has done well, not in any edition.
Okay.
If I am a 15th level warrior and you are a 15th level whiz-biz, you are better at killing the bad thing than I am. You can just nuke it into oblivion.
Yeah, but what if it's got resistance to the stuff I use?
Mm,
And
like
the
say you brought
15th level fighters, the 15th level fighters got a magic weapon. That is happening.
yeah.
He's got a magic weapon at 15th level, unless it's
So,
like a really low.
We're giving you
magic
like a +3 as an optimal situation
Sure.
here. Plus,
I mean, if it was just a +2, it would just still be good.
yeah,
Because it would go through all the magic resistance problems that you'd have as a like a first level party fighting a were or something. You know what I mean?
and I would qualify that as saying that it is definitely someone in chat just said it depends on the situation.
Oh,
It is absolutely situational. If you're a whiz biz and there's someone standing there with a knife to your throat, be creative or be dead. Whoa, Peanut. Hi, how you doing?
It's like, how did you sneeze and talk about that at the same time? It was really crazy. All right.
Okay.
So yeah, knife at the throat, completely different situation. Then we start at
Absolutely.
opposite ends of the fields, and I get like 3 rounds of smashing you with spells and things, or buffing
Yeah.
myself or something. But I can't buff
Right.
myself too much because of concentration.
And
Unless I strategically have selected all the things that don't require concentration, which I have done before for characters. But
And Condor DM does bring up a good point. Are you going to be okay, Peanut? Condor DM does bring up a good point. He says it's the DM's job to give characters a chance to be important. And from the role-playing side of things, I completely agree with you. It absolutely is important for the Dungeon Master or Games Master to spend some time trying to make sure that everyone gets a moment to shine and everyone gets a minute in the spotlight. But from a purely mechanical standpoint, nuke, dude with a sword. That's just how I see it.
you can't. A fighter can't do something that's going to counter meteor shower.
Right, exactly.
I can, meteor shower. Bam! I've just killed like probably 100 people if they were peasants or low-level characters. They're just
Why
dead.
peasants? You just don't
I'm
go.
thinking about an army. Like I'm thinking about let's say you've got a 20th level commander, battle master, and you've got a 20th level wizard. He could be leading troglodytes, babies for all we know, and it would still be like, well, I just nuked your entire team except for you, and now I'm going to focus on you while all these minions are in the way.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there's that balance, but again, as the dungeon master, for example, Ted is going to have us. We decided that we're going to hell to fight a demon god. As our like capstone for the thing, and then I'm taking over as DM for another like startup. So we're like 5 or 6 episodes away from that, from where we are right now. I don't know how far we are in the grand scheme of the game, but he's immune to fire. Even though I took Elemental Adept Fire, which will get through resistance, doesn't matter. It doesn't reduce immunity to resistance. Right. So as a cleric, my job will be to keep everyone alive, and that is it.
And that is all you get to do.
Because it doesn't matter how many hit points I could do damage-wise to something else. I am not going to slog through with my most damaging attacks. They're all either partially radiant or fire. So I'm out of luck for damaging this guy. So anyway, that's kind of like I really think that's the balance that a DM has to look at if their mage is running over everybody. And their fighters and their thieves and other people are feeling like, well, what the heck? I can't.
Ranger Roy speaks to that point, and quite well, in fact. Ranger Roy said collateral damage is something few fighters need to worry about, and that's true. The big bad standing in the middle of town, you guys are having an Old West face-off. If you fireball him, you just killed onlookers. Like, guaranteed.
Our mage did that, and I had to revivify somebody so that we didn't. It was like, oh, you were just mostly dead. We didn't just kill you. Absolutely not. He thinks he had a religious experience as far as he was concerned. But yeah, I had to spend 300 gold pieces to revivify somebody because our mage attacked something that he probably should have strategically used it. His fireball a little differently, and he didn't. And so, bam, people got hurt. As well as teammates. But, we killed the thing in the end.
Yeah. Something you love?
I said a few of them in a row.
Zarift said there's dead and there's mostly dead.
Yes, there's dead and there's mostly dead. Thankfully, he was mostly dead. That's what I think. Okay, I like Revivify because I feel like it is really that low level. This person was just in a coma, and they would have passed on had you not intervened with this powerful magic. But I treat it as, yes, you were basically mostly dead. You were comatose. They would have been, in the 1500s, they would have buried your butt and not thought a second thing about it.
Neat factoid. Did you know that, I think it was during the plague, they had grave bells? And a grave bell was essentially, they'd bury you underground. They'd leave a hole in your casket with a rope or chain that would go to a bell above where you were buried. And if they buried you and you were still alive, you could ring the bell. Creepy.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I always wondered how true that was, but
that is a legit thing. I accept it. I accept it.
Kienata said it. I'm fine with accepting it as fact. Because it's all on you if it's wrong. So.
Yeah. Ability damage? What do you mean, Tree Schwartz? Hit me up with the rest of that thought.
Do you mean you want it back? There's a few things that do ability damage, and they're nasty customers. Like shadows are weak, but strength ability damage. You will be a shadow if you cannot get away from them or kill them fast enough.
Justin Eastham has the rest of that story. Justin, where did I read about that? I read about that somewhere. He said they started putting those on, the bells, after they found claw marks on casket lids. Dark. Super dark.
I kind of wonder how they found claw marks on casket lids.
Ooh, and Nerditor Doug said, hence the term saved by the bell and dead ringer.
Is that where they get graveyard shift too?
I have no idea.
Is that the original, like, staying up super? I mean, because what the heck? Before industrial times, what in the world would you have to stay up all night for?
Oh, there are plenty of things. Here's
besides guard duty and... but it's not called late night guard shift. That's not what it's called. The night watch, like what?
Stitch the Ultimate said, "Whoa, live! What are we talking about?" We already said, "What are we discussing?" But we are discussing 5th edition, things we love mechanically, or I guess anything you guys would like to talk about. Things we love or hate about 5th edition. I so far threw mad amounts of hate at sorcery points. I think they're dumb. And all kinds of love at the skill system, which I think is eloquent. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's just one of the best skill systems I've ever seen in role-playing. He's beautiful. So definitely, because so many skill systems use their skills for ridiculous things. It's a stat boost. Then at that point, why didn't everybody just get it? And bodybuilding. That was the other one from Riffs. Man, that game.
Yeah, I have to say that I appreciate, while you can't do everything in 5e Dungeons & Dragons, I like that you can't do everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there's certain things that just shouldn't exist. I mean, you're saying that it's kind of rough with a high-level wizard to high-level fighter comparison, but I feel that some games take it beyond that. Like the difference between fighter and wizard are dwarfed in comparison to like when you can fly around in a transforming mech and launch missiles.
Yes. Oh, mega damage.
And it's like, I'm a psychic guy with a vibro knife versus a nuclear missile. Yeah, so.
Well,
but that's not 5e. We're getting
5e. Okay.
So
5e.
So I like that you can't do everything under the sun. There is they've actually made a game that's got nice boundaries. They've got lore for everything they do, and it's not just like, we want flying kittens. Let's put flying kittens in. Of course, I can't say that 100%. I say that's 90% of D&D 5e is like when they do a new book, they've got lore that's going in for the reason because it makes the story better.
And that's not a mechanic, but that is a thing I absolutely adore about 5th edition. Instead of making it a deluge of products, which bury you in options, because game systems are usually only so extensible until you start to run into problems. If you're a Pathfinder player and you like to do something really cool, a buddy of mine made, using just Pathfinder products, made a rogue that fights and can use a sheet or his cape as a shield. And if you're using that as a shield, you count as being in full cover, so you're no longer visible. And by the rules of the system, essentially he can make it so you just can't hit him. You can't even hit him with like a magic missile or something because he's in full cover and no longer visible.
So what, he would like throw his voluminous cape in the air and then it would like obscure him completely?
In fencing, they had all these things where you would try and keep someone's fencing blade, their foil, away from you or rapier away from you by using your cloak or whatever. And this is the extreme Hulk version of it where you can block crossbow bolts. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's like, I guess, the difference, because I would just say, well, you attack with disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I feel like because it's something that can be penetrated through, it's not going to stop a damage unless it's like adamantian. Like a mithril weaved, whatever.
Well, there was a really cool thing used by cavalry. Cavalry would take a piece of triangular cloth and they would tie a piece of it to the back of their armor and then 2 more pieces to the sides of their belt. When they rode, this would puff out the piece of fabric, and if someone tried to hit them in the back with an arrow, it would actually deaden the impact, so it wouldn't be able to penetrate armor. There you go. Another cool thing people did. People are cool. They're very smart. Oh, there you go.
So paladins not having to be lawful is something that Matthias Terra doesn't like.
Do you even use the alignment system anymore?
The good part I totally support, but if you need to uphold an oath, it is a set of rules, then you should be lawful. All right. I actually do use the alignment system, but that has to do with my personal preference on the way I think reality works. So that's what that has to do with that. So I would say in D&D, you've got things that are extremely lawful good, and you have things that are extremely chaotic evil. There's like there are bookends in the world. Do you know what I mean? Kind of unchanging bookends.
The absolutes of those things. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I don't do the, oh, well, you can, in D&D there might be a demon that actually wants to reform itself. And it's like, no, he is just going to screw you. He could have the long con for 1,000 years, but in the end, he has a plan that involves totally screwing everybody around. So that's like unchangeable for me. If it's kind of like out of game meta for me is if I'm the DM and there is a demon doing something good, it's just part of his plan to do something terrible.
Yeah.
Now you might be a player and be tricked into that kind of thing, and that's totally fine. Because as a human or as some mutable race, you're used to the idea that, hey, I can change my mind. But these are immortal things that do not change. So that's my thing, is like that's my sticking point for what I like about the alignment system is having those two like extreme, like you're falling off the world otherwise, they're the ends. They're the corners of the world in a sense for alignment. Yeah, and I like them to be kind of a standard to say, well, my action doesn't say lawful good, but am I doing a whole bunch of actions that say I'm not lawful good, or do I just have this one? If I just have this one, well, that's not a big deal. But if you're just like, well, I just decided to just fall off the wagon and never get back on, in fact, walk the other way where the wagon's going, then that's a situation where you say, well, then you're not really lawful good anymore. So, like, that's kind of a transformation of character. So I think it's a good benchmark for transformation of character if you want a kind of stepping stone for things, where you're going from maybe a lawful good to chaotic good. Maybe sometimes there's just a flip. But I don't, I feel like the Celestial and the Fiends are the immutable and kind of like the metaphysical alignment, while people are like the everyday use. Sometimes I'm really lawful good and sometimes I'm kind of not. But for the most part, the dial is to the lawful good side. So I use the alignment system, but I don't use it like, well, you're neutral good, which means this weapon does X, like when they had in 3.5 or whatever, where they had weapons that could do damage to people that were any alignment and they would do extra to certain things. I didn't like that. I mean, you've got a celestial weapon that does like 2d6 extra radiant to evil things. Okay.
I think alignment is a tricky topic for a lot of games masters and a lot of players, because from the perspective of a game designer, it's being employed as a mechanic. And so you have to kind of accept that it's essentially a mechanical part of the game world you're being presented with. In Dungeons and Dragons, good and evil are being presented as mechanics. They have spells that operate on the mechanics. They have abilities that operate on those mechanics. It's a mechanic. But when you start to apply real world principles to that mechanic and say, this is me being good, this is me being evil, it really falls apart. So as long as you kind of keep a viewpoint on it as a mechanic, it can still work. It can be a functional concept.
Well, there's a game angle on anything in the game mechanics. And then there is does this break immersion?
Right.
So a lawful good paladin doing something terrible and losing the right to wield a holy sword, that could be mechanically the way it goes. And it could also be like realism or immersion the correct action. Do you know what I mean?
Right. But for me, for me, it's, I abandon the idea of alignment as a mechanical concept. And it would, at that point, be a storytelling element. I would say this sword wants someone who's pure of heart. And you just absolutely killed someone in cold blood that didn't need to die. I don't feel like you're pure of heart if you do things like that. So the sword no longer works for you the way it did or whatever.
So you're saying it doesn't involve a alignment change. So you're saying you would have it be stricter, an all or nothing kind of thing. If we're like with the specific sword example, I think the sword example is the easiest to say why you could have both.
Sean Murphy says alignment does not fall apart because it's not the real world. And yes, if you're going to use the alignment system and not apply a bunch of real world concepts to it, then absolutely, it's fine. If you're going to use it as a game mechanic, it is a perfectly legit game mechanic, just like a +1 sword is a perfectly legit game mechanic. If it's too, Mr. L, you said, but if it's too simplistic, you feel constrained. Will you expound upon that idea? Will you give me more information?
Do you mean it's like math? Yeah, I have to say, we're saying, are you getting at that basically the alignment system is not mathematically sound? Like there's not a math you can put to it.
Right. I'm saying it is a game mechanic. Like it's your turn, it's my turn. It's a game mechanic. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of game mechanics that if we start to apply too much real world logic to them, they fall apart.
Like swords versus somebody with a dagger.
Right. Even the current combat system, if I apply too much real world logic to it, it will fall apart. Mm-hmm. On my turn, I cast a spell and that knocks you down. And you went before me. So you went, then I go and I cast a spell and knock you down. On your turn, you stand back up. I want to do something to you while you're trying to stand back up. But I don't get to.
Which would normally happen in a combat.
Right, which would normally happen, but I don't get to because it's not my turn.
Well, that's what you have your buddies for.
Well, but that's my point, is if we apply too much real-world concept to a mechanics-driven system, it will always fall apart.
Yeah, what is it? I mean, let's say you're a battle master, you're knocking someone prone, and you're like, all right, now I'm going to kill them? Because that's what would happen.
Yeah, they're on the ground. I have a sword. Is there some other way this will go?
He fell. That's kind of like synonymous with he died. For a reason. Because when you fall right in front of a person that's kicking your butt with a sword, you're most likely going to get stabbed in the face.
Right.
So yes, real world mechanics, you're saying let's not deep dive push that on alignment.
Right.
Let's keep it more in the back.
Well, if we keep it more in the back, then definitely Celestial Demon, those absolutes work great, and you can start to apply simpler things.
Yeah, I don't want to pick and sit there and be like, all right, you've done 3 evil acts, and I've been adding things up, so you can no longer be good. You have to be neutral. You've taken too much good damage. And I guess you could have something like that, where that would be like honor or any of those kind of like faction points towards different groups. They're good for keeping track of things, like your standing in the group, that kind of stuff. That's important, I think, to keep track of a DM rather than just say, well, I'm just kind of winging it on whether or not you're in or out. But yeah, so if people aren't really changing much, then I think it's a really easy thing to include, especially with the absolutes. But I'll give you the idea that yes, if you go too deep, and I think that applying morality and all that kind of stuff to the alignment system can you get deep in the weeds, and you're like, well, crud, now if I look at the combat system, like fighting with a sword versus fighting with a dagger, there's a statistical advantage to fighting with that sword that is not just for a possibility of getting 4 extra damage a round.
This is longer than yours.
It's not you can't calculate how much better it is with the system we currently have. And in fact, I don't think I want a counter cross counter gamist system of swords and stuff.
It's and someone brings up another great idea. Sean Murphy said something that I feel like is very important to consider. Sean Murphy said, I like alignment in heroic fantasy. In a cyberpunk game, it would be just silly. And that statement makes me think context. You always need context. We have to have rules and guidelines in order to play the role-playing game in the first place. So if you knocked the guy down and he got up and you didn't get to do anything and had to wait until your next turn, I'm sorry, but there have to be some kinds of rules and constraints so that we can play in the first place. So, and Andrew said, deep diving the alignment system leads to a dull game. That's right. That's right.
Yes, it can get a little too intense. So yes, I will concede. I agree. We didn't do really a love and hate thing with the alignment. We were just talking about it in general.
We just talked. Well, that's what always happens with the alignment system. I know that you guys watching and gals watching, you guys have had this conversation too with your friends.
A lot.
I know you have.
We've been talking about it since 2nd edition, for me anyway. Yeah,
exactly. Since it came out. I remember when the alignment system came out and people were like, where's Batman go? And that was a huge conversation. Well, but here, there was a Batman comic where Batman goes, beats up a gang boss, wraps the guy up, and then throws him off the front of City Hall. And that's his gift to Commissioner Gordon. This was when Commissioner Gordon was hunting Batman down. Gives him this crime boss as a gift to Commissioner Gordon. Now, he took a really evil guy off the street. And
well, I hope he had evidence for it, because otherwise that guy would be back out.
Well, that was the thing. Commissioner Gordon couldn't go after him because of some kind of legal loophole.
Or friends in high places kind of thing.
Right, exactly. So Batman just delivered him. So the question is, and this was proposed as part of the alignment system, if that's what he did, what alignment is Batman? Go.
Well, yeah, because is lawful order or is lawful following the rules? Well, technically, it's part of the structure of order is following rules. We're not getting into an alignment discussion. Done. We're ding.
Ting, ting, ting.
Sorry, I almost went down the path.
The path of darkness. Yeah, exactly.
The light, but it was going to be an alignment discussion. We got to stop. Okay.
It was going to be. Okay.
So Doug, one last thing on alignment. He says, I think we can all agree the story example of alignment in 2nd edition PHB is the best, though. I'll concede to that.
I miss the days when people would complain about the lack of rules for polearms and whether a lucerne hammer or quarterstaff can benefit from said rules. That actually brings up something that we were discussing right before we got on. Oh no, people are on it.
Give me my mercurial sword. I want my mercurial sword.
Well, we were discussing a scythe, a sickle.
Yeah.
Not a scythe. So
the Reaper.
A scythe used for farming is typically a bent handle or straight handled piece of wood with a really long, 2.5 foot long, paper thin blade.
Super thin.
And the way they used to sharpen these paper thin blades, to give you an idea of how thin that metal was, they would just hammer it. They would just hammer the edge of the blade, and that would make it thin enough that you could cut through what you were doing. And
Great
people
peasant
were
tool.
yeah, right. And people were having a discussion about using this as a weapon. The 5th edition system doesn't lend itself very well to trying to define exotic weapons. And my personal opinion on a scythe as a weapon is, if we want to enjoy it as a cool, kind of intimidating looking thing, then we'll head more towards the, let's just have fun with this.
Yeah.
And we'll make it a pole arm and do like a bunch of damage. If we want to head super realistic, it is a garbage weapon and nigh useless after 1 or 2 hits.
An actual sickle, a hand sickle, is a better weapon.
Right, absolutely. So,
but I would say it's basically a staff with an intimidating looking pointy thing on it. So you got a staff at least.
mm-hmm.
But anyway, yes, I would agree. Like something like that. Like now, war scythe. I mean, if you can have all these other kind of weapons, why not a war scythe? Someone said, I'm going to take this farm implement and instead I'm going to stick something on top of it, or I'm going to take two or three scythe blades, slap them together, and then bam, I've got something more intimidating.
But this was not the kind of thing that has historical context.
Yeah, you're not going to just pick it up off the farm and just.
Yeah, a war scythe is not a armies had these thing. There are stories about things like this, but there aren't like we found an army that outfitted itself with war scythes. That's not a thing.
I think it's got nice poetry story elements to it.
Absolutely. And there's no reason not to completely indulge that. As far like if I had a player who came to me and he was like, I'm going to use a scythe as a weapon, I'd be like, why not? Let's have fun.
Yeah,
let's do this. That's a crazy looking weapon.
If you're a necromancer, I would just say, well, it does quarterstaff damage. And if you're a fighter, I would say, well, it does polearm damage. The end.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so one thing I really like about 5th edition is that they did not go in and be like, we need to have 70 or 80 different weapons. I like that they said, hey, if you got a katana, it's a longsword.
Yeah.
The end. It doesn't go faster. It doesn't do more damage. It doesn't do anything that it has done historically through the different editions. Mm-hmm. It's had a difference to it. I don't know what what was it? Like a longsword? It did extra damage at some point. And it's just like the katana.
Yes.
Katanas are also phase.
AD&D 2nd edition was the Oriental Adventures Compendium came out. And that book had all kinds of rules for martial arts and a bunch of different exotic weapons.
Yeah. I say have the exotic weapons, but have them do legit regular damage. Like if you're a thief and you're throwing something, I actually don't care what it is. If you can throw a dagger and do a sneak attack, well then you can throw whatever this thing is and do a sneak attack, and it's a dagger damage, and it's finesse. The end. Yeah,
and Aaron Park says a katana was a bastard sword in 3rd edition. Wow, absolutely.
I was like,
I
remember wielding 2 of them at one time. So I was like, what did I do to do that? I just, 20 years of gaming, it kind of crushes together. It's compressed files in the back, and now 5th edition is taking up the workspace. Oh yeah,
I sweep everything out I don't need. Somehow so I remember more mentee than I need to.
Thank you for that, Aaron Parks. So I would say, I really love that about 5th edition, and that way I can take pretty much any weapon. I can say, well, a fighter can use it. It's two-handed. It's large. Then it can be a polearm. It doesn't matter what it looks like. I don't have to agonize over what type of damage or anything it can do. I can just say, like, bam, it is so similar to a polearm that the difference don't matter.
Yeah. Okay, this is something that was talked about when we just had like 5 people in chat a half an hour ahead of schedule. Okay. I cast Charm on Nate. Woo, 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 woo. And I say, Nate, bark like a dog, and Nate barks like a dog. Yeah. And you did it. And then the spell wears off. And now you are going to stab me with a sword.
That Kienata.
Okay, so a lot of people feel like that's a little ridiculous. Okay. And if you actually read old stories, there are people who are charmed, no longer charmed, and realize they're no longer charmed but don't immediately like whip out a sword and go charging after the person or start calling them names or something.
Well, well with the friends. The friends is a good example. It's a cantrip thing. It's really nice. Mechanically speaking, you get advantage on charisma stuff with that person for a minute. So it's long enough to do a deal with them and then run for the hills because they're going to be mad at you later. Now they become hostile and they may try and get back on you. I have to say, if someone manipulated me with magic and I realized it, I'd be mad or embarrassed, one of those two. But I try and there would be a part of me that wanted to get back at them. Now, I think friends, charm, all that kind of stuff is worded the way it was for player-on-player stuff. Baseline, and so that you couldn't own a town with a second-level wizard or sorcerer. So it was a thing that needed to happen. I hate saying this. But looking at charm, mechanically speaking, and looking at how it was used in other editions, like 2nd edition, where you could cast it on a really stupid person and basically own them for a month. Yeah. So you could cast a spell again on them. 29 days in, you cast a spell again. They're yours forever. Dave did this in a game. No, they didn't have to leave town. Had a criminal empire because of charm spell. So I didn't want to see that happen in a game, especially if imagine your players are the targets, and you're slapping them with this charm spell. Well, it's like, great. I've just lost 50% of my player agency unless I want to do exactly what this guy wants to tell me, and I'm happy with it. Basically, you know what I mean? So I understand why they did that. I'm 100% behind the out-of-game reason to do this.
So mechanically speaking, here's what I see if I'm developing this spell and I'm talking about it and I'm trying to sell the other designers or developers I'm working with. I, as the games master, cast charm on you. If I cast charm on you, I basically have to tell you that there's something wrong, that there's something going on. Even if I want to go with older stories where people wouldn't realize they were charmed. There are all these classic tales of the beautiful maiden charms the man. These are, 500-600-year-old stories.
Yeah, the enchantress or whatever.
Right. The enchantress charms the man and the male becomes completely susceptible to her whims. And then over time, the charm fades, but he never realizes that he's been charmed in the first place. She just has to kind of re-charm him or show him her mirror again or whatever her gimmick is. So you can't do that with players. By adding in a mechanic that says the target becomes hostile, you immediately make it okay to tell players they're being charmed, take away their sense of agency for a little while. They'll be angry as heck about it, usually, if you take away agency. And then at the end of it, say, okay, you're not charmed anymore. What would you like to do?
So what I would say with the charming thing, they basically said, well, the annoyance that a player would feel with that sense of loss of agency, let's just actually allow the NPCs to have that same kind of give and take, like treat them more like they're another entity in the game that has agency, and say, well, what would they feel like about that? And the answer is, well, they'd get hostile towards you. They might not do something to you right away, like yell and scream and throw stuff at you. But they might also never give you a good deal or give you bad stuff. Or if you really tick them off long enough and embarrass them, they might poison you or something. Something bad might happen. You've got to basically a weak enemy or someone who's going to consider doing harm to you. So I dislike it, but I know I'm 100% understanding of why it's the way it is.
This is one of those situations where mechanically it's a very good idea because there's tons of reasons and tons of ways you would be breaking immersion if you didn't use it that way. So it's mechanically, it's sound.
But Mom, I want to be the ice cream wizard mage that eats to eat it all.
I want
all 10 flavors.
A grumpy panda said, I want all 10 flavors.
Right now.
A grumpy panda said, and if it were something like a merchant, they might just go, dang it, that's the third time this week I got swindled by a mage. Man, there's so many things I could say setting-wise about reasons you should police mages. And
we need to talk about regulation. We did talk about regulation. We need to I think we need a deep dive into the mageocracy.
Seriously. Dear, I'm so into doing that. I so want a world of regulated magic because I really think coming up with a nice, believable, regulated magic would just be just fun, start to finish. That sounds beautiful to me.
As long as you didn't get too crunchy with it, but you had it
You
more
wouldn't-
be like, if magic existed in the world, what would be the laws? What would be the things regarding it? Because
Well,
you're saying
that's-
like a guy with a sword can only do. There's no collateral damage when the guy swings his sword around at a person that he's trying to defeat. He
Yes.
attacks that guy. But when
But
a mage gets angry or gets nasty, there's a lot more things that can happen.
The problem is we have to start with a foundation, though. You need developed governments to institute a developed control system.
Ooh, that's
You know
dark.
what I-
Sorry, that's dark. BBP081. Sometimes the regulation is the noose.
Yeah. Well, that's I really honestly I think it would in my mind, the way I imagine these worlds playing out, I really feel like magic would be heavily regulated. Now, if you're playing in a world where there's still tons and tons of super tiny towns and villages, and there aren't very many giant cities, and a government is actually just like a king with his constituents or followers or whatever, and he controls like 9 or 10 towns, that's not really a big enough government that there would be a regulatory system. That's more like a persecution system where he doesn't like mages and
Or
is
he
killing
says, "I want them all
yeah,
to
or
be
I
under
want
my
them all.
control."
Right.
So
But if you're
bring
talking
'em to
about
me.
massive developed worlds with huge populations, then yeah, absolutely. We could have some kind of regular inquisitions that head out and go all stabby fest on the whiz biz. Like, yeah.
Says you guys are describing the plot of Dragon Age: The Circle of Magi. You know what? But the thing with the Dragon Age was that they didn't. It wasn't just they could do terrible amounts of damage; they could turn into demons. Right? There's a chance that they go all hairy and nasty.
Right. They added in a "this could end poorly for you" thing.
Yeah.
In most of the magic systems or magic regulation systems, like psionics I don't know what you would call that. Okay, a mage in Warhammer Fantasy is a psionicist in Warhammer 40K. They both do the exact same thing.
Mhm.
One of them gets captured and fed to the Immortal Emperor. Death to the False Emperor. The other one is hired out. Now, the problem is the way they draw magic. And again, this is another one of those systems, just like Dragon Age, where they're saying magic ultimately leads to evil or contains some inherent level of evil. In D&D, we don't really have that. Magic is drawn off of chaos energy in the Warhammer universes. In Dragon Age, I guess it can lead to immense evil. I don't know.
You hit on a good point, and that is you've got greater power, and there's the thing with human nature and the gathering of power and what happens to that human as they gather more and more power. And we're talking about like semi-divine abilities to create stuff out of nothing and things like that. When you get into that level, you're going to have some I'm a deity power creep enter your head.
Somebody's going to go power crazy.
Yeah, and there's going to be the guy who becomes the shining example on the hill that becomes the Wizard King. You know, the God Emperor that is benevolent and all this kind of stuff. And then you're going to have the other offshoot, which decides to raise an undead family of thousands.
Yeah.
And decides to try and conquer the world. Because he deserves all the rest of that power. And now he's twisted by dark magic.
And this is a classic premise. And I can actually give you two completely opposed things that use the same premise. In Harry Potter, the good mage opens a school in order to train all the other whiz-biz how to be a good mage and keep the vast proportion of mages good guys.
And not get hunted down by regular people in society.
Right. And the bad mage is just the one crazy noseless dude. And he shall not be named. And he attracts a bunch of other lunatics to him and they do bad things. Here's a completely different setting that uses an identical premise. Professor Xavier opens the school for the gifted. and begins recruiting mutants to teach them how to use their powers for good. And then one Looney Tune goes off. Admittedly, he kind of has a reason to be a Looney Tune. But anyway, Magneto goes off and does his thing.
He's
and
a complex individual.
He's a complicated
who
character.
I root for in a lot of ways. But in other ways, I'm like, no, Magneto, just be like a hair better than you are. And I can be like, Magneto's awesome, everybody. So I'm talking about comic book stuff. He goes through a lot of
ups and
downs because he's super conflicted about what he needs to do in life.
Yeah. So, but the point is that you end up with the typical story of the good guy trying to lead a bunch of other people towards the light, and one evil guy getting enough crazy people to lead towards darkness. And like I was talking about in the Warhammer 40K universe and those universes, you end up with a magic has some evil thing behind it that ends up. Oh, you better talk.
Mr. L. Vecna opens a school for liches, and he spelled it like witches.
Well, that's the magic setting as far as like taking control of it and making it regulated would probably fall under the lines of the Dumbledore or Xavier style setting. That would be like an easy, comfortable place to start. You could also do dark side, super persecutionatory Darth Vader magic.
Yeah, like I'm gonna get rid of all of the Jedi kind of thing.
I'm gonna get rid of every spellcaster, so I'm the only one.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's the Darks then, the champions of Rajat or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They're all like, hey, I'm the number one hot stuff in my region, and I'm gonna make sure that no one else can counter me or come close.
My mom says I'm the number one hot stuff.
I'm the number one mage, my mama told me. And she's been alive for 1,000 years, so she knows her stuff. Yeah, so back to not regulation, because that could be an entire 2 hours by itself.
Right.
And back on the dislike and like stuff.
Yes, dislike and like.
We've gone through a lot. We've had...
This is why we do that.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot.
This is why we do the Nerdarchy After Dark, is because we go through a bunch of stuff.
Well, we basically said, it's similar to how Nerdarchy started. No, my stream dropped.
Yeah, I just got a bunch of weirdness. Okay, it's back.
I'm in the red. We're just going to give it a second, everybody.
Yeah.
It's like straining hard. It's like, I believe I can work.
Mr. L, very cylindrical glass. You mean my cup? Meow.
Oh yeah, it's because of the green screen. Gives it a little bit of a
does the green screen make it look super crazy and weird? You're good. Yeah, it just lagged out for just a second. I actually got a hit over here too.
Well, I'm still in the red. Really it's just a little strange. Yep, it's unhappy.
Okay, all right, we're fine.
There.
Everything's fine. Everything's okay.
I'm pausing the preview and hoping that works. So you just let me know if anything goes weird.
The green screen does make the cup look super crazy. Vecna's School for Liches and Wizards and Baba Yaga's School for Witches and Lizards. Yeah, it is. Oh, no, that did kill it. It killed it. That stinks. Oh, wait. It's back up?
Rip stream. Yeah, exactly.
Hi.
We're having a bit of
I freaked out really bad there.
Yeah.
Okay, we're fine. Okay. Discussion. We're not doing WizBiz regulation right now.
Okay.
I think we fixed it. I think we're okay.
I'm in the green now. I was on red for like a minute. It was not happy.
Yeah.
All right. So we've gone through a lot of things. We went through bounded accuracy. We've gone through sorcery points and sorcerer stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with going a little bit back and going back into sorcerer. Wild mage. I really feel like your Tides of Chaos thing should just recharge on a short rest and not be DM dependent, because they did a good job with most of the classes not having to worry about whether or not your DM remembered to do something for you.
Yes.
And I just feel like, you know what, if the DM didn't stick it to you and give you your Tides of Chaos back before a short rest, you should just get it back. And I don't think that is the way the rule works. I think you're kind of stuck until the next day.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're fine here. Everything is fine. How's
fine
things? Yeah, we're good. We're good. I don't TK427, why are you your post? I think that if you're going to have a mechanic like that, that it should have some kind of standardization to it. I don't think it should just be GM, let me know what happens.
Yeah. That's what I think.
But there are mechanics that don't have any kind of standardization to them. Like we always called them luck points, but hero points, luck points, karma points, whatever you want to call them, which I thought it was crazy to actually see rules for those. Those are the kinds of things that were just used at tables forever. Just here's a point.
You can use like inspiration.
Yeah, you can use it whenever you want. You only get one per game session, and it's your whammy, your gimme. You get to make the roll. You get to have a free crit, whatever.
Well, it's to help you either succeed at something really well when you need to. Like, I need to be heroic right now, so this one, you're cramping my style.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's that, you know what, I've just been having a kind of down day, and I want to actually get the hit in on this thing and try and take it down. Or really succeed at something really cool you want to make. Like, imagine you're doing a skill and you're using your tool proficiency and you want to make this awesome item. Or, like, do it. You want to definitely succeed on it. Then, you know, that's the time to use your inspiration, and it means something to use it then.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my gripe about the only they should have included 3 sorcerer archetypes in the PHB to start, and they should have. I would have said, you know, it's not long rest; it should recharge on a short rest, because there's so many things that recharge on a short rest. I mean, warlock's pretty much dependent on recharging on a short rest.
Yeah,
so,
well, a warlock's also an Eldritch Bolt machine gun.
Yeah, that's another thing. Which
short rest.
I have to say, I liked what we talked about for the Patreon reward, the Nightmare and Dreamscape Warlock. How I changed. We talked about it, and I ended up doing the official Patreon reward for Nerdarchy as having something that you could do besides just Eldritch Bolt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean Eldritch Blast. Whatever the heck it's called. I try and not use it.
Oh, the little. Did you do the little?
The figment. Yeah.
The figment thing. Oh man, that thing was fun.
Don't want to get into it too much because then we'll discuss warlock archetypes, which is fun, but
yeah, there's so many things you can do with warlock.
Yeah, so that's my last gripe about sorcerer. Is the Tides of Chaos thing kind of being a bunk ability unless your DM really likes doing you can recharge it because X has happened to you.
Zarif, thanks for hanging out. Have a good night. I think we lost Fragonate earlier. Later, Frag. Oh God, hello. Sorry about that. Excuse me, folks. Okay, here's this. This is something that I was really hoping, like literally crack open 5th edition. It creaks when you open it. Brand new book. And I'm like, okay, please don't be in here. And you flip, and there it is, Wish.
That's iconic.
Oh,
hey, it's the only way to kill a Tarrasque, isn't it?
Just let it die. Actually, no, the 5th edition Tarrasque is the killable Tarrasque. All the other Tarrasques are non-killable. The 5th edition Tarrasque doesn't have anything that says you can't kill it. You can just nuke that puppy into the ground, which is crazy to me because I liked the fact it was unkillable.
Not with magic very easily.
Well, right.
Okay, so your gripe, Wish.
That's
what I'm hearing.
Yes. Are you gonna pull Wish up?
No.
Oh, okay.
You want me to?
You could.
Know it's pretty rough.
Yeah, I really do not like Wish. I don't think it should be in the book. If it is in the book, I don't think it should be offered to players. For instance, we have the sense of agency for players. There is also a sense of agency for the games master. What's my ability to tell the story and help keep the players in the bubble that I've created for them? I'm trying to give them a play space, even if the play space is do whatever you want. I'm trying to give them a play space. When you introduce an item like Wish, you're making it really, really difficult for me to maintain your play space because you could do anything. Okay, this is what we're doing, and you guys are doing this, and there's crazy stuff going on in the universe, and you're all 20th level. I'm just going to cast Wish. Oh, God. Okay, what do you want to do?
What's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
It's like a GM headache. That's all it is.
Doing it that way
yes,
is dangerous because you might never be able to cast Wish again. And Wish is really good for everything else besides using it in the way that there's a chance you won't be able to cast it again. I have to say, using a 9th level spell to recreate any other spell and not have it be a chance you won't be able to use Wish, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That is worth being able to do that. The rest of the career of that mage is way better than doing a really crazy Wish.
DM Steve says, what I won't miss is permanency. Part of me agrees, part of me disagrees. They had some rules in second ed for making magic items using permanency, but for the most part, I won't miss permanency, because as soon as permanency becomes available, God, dude, I transform into an earth elemental and I cast permanency on myself, and then I go deep into the ground and I get a bunch of gems, and then I take them to the market and get a bunch of gold, and then I buy a castle. And it's like one of those things where you're like,
it has really made your wish come true.
Yeah, the players essentially become GM at that point. Like, okay, I'm just gonna watch. What do you want me to do about it? We know this is possible. Go ahead. Like,
so okay. A great point, Alex C. He says that a simple fix is just the wish spell is not allowed to mortal hands. So then you find out your wizard now wants to become a lich, and you wonder why. My immortal hands will be able to use this spell. So that's a good point. And you know what? It's in the book. I'm glad it's there, because when the DM says this real powerful semi-divine being casts a spell, what is he able to do to the players that's like within the rule set that isn't just me like DM fiating them in the face?
Yes.
And you could just say, well, he can cast Wish, which can do a tremendous amount of damage to a whole bunch of people, transport him. It can replace spells of X level or lower. It has all those abilities, and you just need a couple wishes a day as a semi-divine being plus your other powers to really shake it up. So I say it's nice that it's in the game, and it gives like a structure to what's a super ridiculous high level spell, because it's just like Meteor Shower. You can't have another 9th level spell or a lower level spell than that make it ever that does more damage than Meteor Shower or Meteor Swarm. I don't remember what it's called really.
I think it's Meteor Swarm.
Yeah, I like Meteor Shower better, because it's not the type of shower you ever want to be in. So
a meteor shower is something you go out on a Tuesday and watch with your wife, and you're like, oh, neat. A meteor swarm is something you kill people with.
Yeah, it swarms you like giant killer bees, giant exploding, bludgeoning them to death on fire killer bees. So yeah, so a meteor swarm, much like a killer bee swarm, is something you don't want. So that's like a cap. It's like you're not supposed to be doing more damage than this with a spell. So if you had a ridiculously powerful thing that could deal magical damage like that, don't go over Meteor Swarm, or it's going to be too ridiculous, even for that like level. So similar to Wish, you do all that kind of stuff. I like that it's in the game, but yes, I don't want players to do it. Similarly, I wouldn't want to randomly roll deck of many things and be like, well, I randomly roll it, I guess it's going to be here. Like, no, heck no.
Matthias Terra said, in my setting, if you want to wish, you gather the Dragon Balls or the Infinity Stones or something. If you gather the Infinity Stones, you don't get a wish. You just get to alter reality at will forever.
You get wishes forever. Wishes for days.
Yeah, you just and instantaneous, and just never ending wish. Just whatever you want to happen. But
Doug, I like the safe wish uses. If it just end it right there, I'd feel more comfortable about it. I agree.
Yeah.
Like, I guess safe uses but I also like that kind of like going all out, being able to do something beyond yourself and maybe never being able to use the spell again. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I'm just thinking, I guess part of it's perception. As a games master, if you take all the shouts out of Skyrim and just leave the spells and the ability to use melee weapons and fun things like that, Skyrim's kind of the power level I like for running a game. I like the fact that even if you're super awesome and tough, if 10 guys with swords come running at you, you could still have a really bad day because they're swords and you're made of meat. Like you're wearing dragon scales, I get it, but still there are pokey parts all over you. You can still be a pincushion. And I kind of like keeping the power level at that.
Well, there's a level of realism that helps with immersion when you're like, well, if you're surrounded by 20 guys, you're still in some trouble.
Right. Exactly. But with things like wish and stuff available, and I guess there's no permanency, but back when permanency was available, you're basically just waiting for the wizard to get so powerful that everybody in the group was asking for favors from the wizard. He became a vending machine of spells. Hey, cleric, will you cast this on me? And hey, wizard, will you cast this on me? And now I'm permanently, Yes.
I'm agreeing. But I wanted to make a comment afterwards.
Go.
Okay. Thing I like, but kind of would still like rules for. It's paradoxical, I know, but magic items. I like that they feel magical again in 5th edition.
Oh, yeah.
I really love that about the magic items. But,
absolutely,
I do like the idea of being a guy that is able to craft cool things. And I think they kind of, they gave that kind of allowance with the guys they're working on right now. What is it? There's the artificer or whatever that they're trying to like work out. I like that that is in their like rule set idea of things to do is have this artificer, have the alchemist. And I feel like they're bounded enough, but again, it's still kind of like I would like it as a player, but I understand that it was the game 5e, the game so far was better for there not being a magic item rule set, like how to make.
Keith Pickett has a really good question that we can both field.
Okay.
Nerdarchy, character creation, point buy versus rolling for stats. What are your thoughts on this debate?
I gotta say, it's been a long time that we've been doing Nerdarchy so far, and I rarely get asked this question. And I think it's a cool question to ask, so thumbs up for the question.
Because you have the option of doing both. Sometimes the GM has something specific they want to do, so...
I thought that point buy, the idea of like having these static stats that everyone got, I would say like I think it was introduced in another time, not 5e, and I thought to myself, that stinks. Why would you ever not want to roll stats? I felt like it wasn't a legitimate character, but it was a very strange thing. I had taken a break. 4th edition came out. I didn't play. I played like 3.5 once in a while. I took a long hiatus from D&D and role-playing games in general. Excuse me. When I was helping run my LARP, I was like, I don't have time to do a weekend of D&D every other weekend and the LARP and XYZ thing. So live action role-play for people who didn't know. So when 5th edition came out and rolled out and I read and I was like, point buy, for some reason I just was like, yes, standard array and it's point buy. I don't think I ever want to roll for a character again. I don't know why, but that's just what I thought. I was just like, yep, let's go with that. Because you know what? A problem I could never fix was there's always that person that somehow ends up with 2 18s. Like, I know you didn't roll that for the past 7 damn characters. So how is this working out?
Player honesty, right? If we factored player honesty into it, all right, let's modify the question a little bit to change how you look at this.
Oh, no. Okay. Before that, I'm still going to look at it the exact same way. Because in the end, what I don't want to think to myself is, those kind of feel a little unbelievable, even though I feel like, let's say, I don't think anybody in my team my group would lie about rolling stats.
I rolled the 2 18s.
Yeah, so I would be like, wow, you rolled 2 18s, but there's a part of me somewhere in my mind that's going, how did he freaking get 2 18s? It's like, I know you wouldn't cheat on a roll, but at the same time, there's a part of me going, he must have cheated. Distrust him forever.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't want to distrust him forever. He's like, do it. I'm like, okay, I distrust Kienata forever now. I'm going to be over like a hawk and be like, oh, did you really just roll a 20? Was that really a crit? Yeah, so it's just just going to lead me down a dark path with the devil on my shoulder telling me what evil people everyone is. So I don't want to feel that way about anybody. Mm-hmm. So I just really like the one time I had my pay-to-play game, my Holds of the Mordain campaign. I said, you can take the standard array or you can do point buy. And two of the guys have been playing D&D forever. They're like, what? I'm like, okay, you can do those too. Or I will roll your stats live right here in this roll generator and we will watch them happen. And if you're fine with that, you can have it. I was like, because I know I'm looking at him rolling what I'm rolling. I cannot in any way be like, he has somehow manipulated the internet for me to roll different stats for him. So I know completely, I don't have to worry about someone's honesty. I can just say, yes, we all saw it. All of us are relieved of that strain of questioning someone's morality over whether or not they cheated to get an 18.
Yes. And there was actually a really good comment in chat about that. Point buy works so well because you can make the character without witnesses. And that's, I mean, like, how did we do my stats for my character? We did point buy, and I don't remember if it was Nate or Doug, but you guys just picked them.
Yeah, I just was like, oh, you want to be kind of like average in these stats, and you only care about one thing. And I'm like, okay, bam, done.
I was like, I think you have a reasonably good wisdom. Just average out everything else. Done.
Yeah.
Finished.
BBP 081. Yeah. Rolling outside of where everyone can see it out of that bounds, but taking session 0 and be like, let's roll up our characters, everybody. That can be a cool, fun experience because you laugh when someone gets a 5 and then you cry when you get a 5. But you know, like, you're also like, all right, that guy got a 17. This is great. You know, it's like a camaraderie kind of like everybody's in the same pot. You're all like, you're all in the same like rolling situation. You're all in the same situation.
Mm-hmm. And
when someone brings a character that they've already rolled up in, like, you're re-rolling that with everybody because that's the thing we're doing.
Right. So, you're put in an awkward position where Nate comes to my house and goes, you're never going to believe this. I rolled 3 18s.
Like,
and I'm like,
never in my life has it happened, but
I can't guarantee that everyone at my table believes it. So you have to re-roll. And I'm really sorry because the odds of you getting even 1 18 are pretty low. You're definitely not going to have 3 at the end of the night. Go sit at the table and roll with everyone else. And that social awkwardness that doesn't need to happen. But I agree with BBP 081. If everybody comes to the table and is like, let's all sit together and roll stats, dive in, man.
Oh yeah, then let's roll. 46 dropped the lowest. Bam.
Yeah, 46 dropped the lowest. Man, oh man. Many times.
Or 3d6 ones and twos, ones or sixes?
Ones or sixes.
Yeah.
There were so many systems for that. I remember there used to be able to go online back when the internet was young. You could go online and you could find these massive blog posts about this is the superior way to roll stats. You will roll 5d4 minus the top 2 plus 6, then average the sum divided by 5. You know, you'd have these crazy convoluted systems of how to get stats out of it. Oh man. So point buy is pretty good.
So the thing I like about 5e is that I felt like, to me, I don't know about anybody else's experience, but for me, I felt like it normalized and maybe say, yes, I should be doing it this way, and that is point buy or standard array, and then bam, you're done. And you don't have to worry about anything else. And you can just say, we're all legit characters. You can create whatever. But I will definitely say, sitting down and playing with everybody and stay with a session 0 and saying, okay, I have this idea for a character. Let's see if it makes sense that I am this after I roll my stats. And I've had that. That's, you know, the second edition me would have been like, oh, stat array. But after 20 years of gaming and doing game design and stuff like that, I say, all right, point buy and stat array is really the fair system to play for everybody.
I have had con tables where most of the time for a convention, and this is just my experience, if you're going to run a table at a con, you bring pre-generated characters. Rule number one, nobody gets to bring their own characters. Rule number two, you probably don't have the room that they gave you to play the game in long enough to have people make characters. It can be a long process. But at one point, I had my first D&D game canceled. All my players were already hanging out in the game room there for the second D&D game I was supposed to run. So I let everybody roll characters, and I started talking to everyone to figure out what kind of characters they like to play. And two of the people were very crunchy players. They really, really love to min-max things. And so I was like, I'm watching your rolls because I know that you want high stats, and I know that, and I don't like being in that position. I don't want to have to watch someone like a hawk. I'd like them to just do their thing and tell me about their cool character when they're done.
And it's not like you're trying to catch a shoplifter. It's not like they're really breaking some kind of terrible rule that's like societal rule and they, this is an illegal act. It's just like, you know what? You just kind of bring in negativity to the game by cheating, basically. But so I like that. In 5th edition, I just got to that point in the character creation. I read that and I was like, yep, this is what I'm going to do from now on. So that's something I really enjoyed about going through and reading 5e.
Logan Cohen said, I only dislike point buy because the tendency is to have every player have something like 14, 14, 14, 8, 8, 8. You really wouldn't like my character's stats for the Spelljammer game then.
How about 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 14?
Yeah, exactly. that's the thing is, when I play a game of Dungeons and Dragons or Rifts or Marvel or whatever it is, when I go to play the game, I have a concept of what the character is like. The character sheet and those stats on it, those are not the same thing as what my character is like. I've built a person, and then the character sheet helps fill in some of those gaps. But for the most part, I go with a concept of a character, and then class is whatever suits the character well. And my character class selection for our Spelljammer game was actually an open discussion between Nate and Doug and myself. We all just hung out and chatted about it for a while, like trying to figure out what the best thing was. So
yeah, based on, you said, I want to play this character and I'm going to play a ranger. What should I do?
Yeah.
Or did we pick? We picked ranger after talking about it for a bit.
I don't remember the order of events.
I think actually the class was like the last thing we picked. We did stats and class like was the last thing, and that speaks to the character. It's kind of like you could be any class. We just picked the one that seemed the most legit and the most like kind of like made everything, solidified everything together.
Right. Yeah. So it's, I don't know. It depends. I would definitely say it relieves a lot of unnecessary strain to have a point buy system. You just don't have to have tension at the table. You can get rid of it and just use a point buy system, or have everybody roll at the same time. And Nerdarchy Doug said, and it worked great. It did work great.
Yes,
I had so much fun.
Really good. If you haven't checked it out yet, I'm totally going to plug our Spelljammer game that we play 1:30 to 3:30 Eastern Standard Time on Fridays. And
we play
Doug
with
is the GM of Awesomeitude.
And we have Nerdarchy Doug, we have Cardboard Fortress Games, Anthony Yamato Cruiser, we have Megan Amato, we have Megan R. Miller, the author, we have Ben from Puffin Forest, we have Nate, but no.
And we've got this Kienata guy, whoever that is.
Whoever he is, that guy.
So Snickle Git said, I feel the players who cheat to get all high stats are missing out. Low stats can make for the best role-playing moments. Yes, and that's one of the things I like about the standard array is that it does have some lower stats. Like built into it. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to start at 10 as the lowest and then build from there. So there's like a flaw built in.
All your answers come from math. And they just did the math and they said, this is good. This gives you the opportunity to be heroic. I feel like if I told you your character can have 20s in every stat, there are less opportunities for you to be challenged, or I have to work harder to make opportunities for you to be challenged. And those opportunities will single you out and make it harder for the rest of the group to feel as important as you. So I just feel like getting everyone, I guess the whole concept is getting everyone on a relatively even playing field so everyone can instantly feel valuable and important and have fun in the game session. Because the point, if you didn't know, is to have fun. That is rule one.
And if you have a gaming group, it's most likely a team-oriented thing where you're all in a party together and you're all taking on different roles or similar roles, but you're doing them in a different way because you're two different people. And having fun that way, to like coming all together and figuring out things and solving problems and kicking in doors and punching orcs in the face.
Oh, you
and
exploded.
All that kind of stuff. We were golden earlier. Hey, you know what? I'll take golden earlier for having some problems now, but I'm kind of bummed.
I know. At least we got one of the streams today out of there. Actually, it looks good for you. It might just be choppy for me. It could be my internet connection. We're good. We're good. Just kidding.
JK. No.
Okay.
I'm gonna say I turned my preview off. Forget that preview. So I'm now.
Forget that preview. Yeah, it overcomplicates things. Yeah. I'm trying to listen to and Twitch just stalled out for
all
me.
All over the place. It's kind of wonky right now.
Super frustrating. And YouTube stalled out for me. Everybody says the stream is fine on there, and maybe it's just us.
Okay, well, it looks terrible on our end. I'm going from like KB per second of like 2,000 to 5, like to 500 to 200. Oh, I just went to 0. So on my end, it's telling me that you're having one heck of a time.
Let me, real quick, I'm going to try and get this in before we have a little weird hiccup again. Tree Schwartz asks, we had another hiccup, whatever. Tree Schwartz asks, while we're on this, what's your opinion on dump stats? It is just phasing in and out over and over again.
Mm-hmm. So I would say,
and I think right now, what's considered the dump stat? Oh my God, stream, please.
Oh, the dump stat? I think it's
yes.
Whatever you're not focusing on as a player. I've had strength be a dump stat and not had a good dex. I've had intelligence and wisdom be dump stats and been a type of spellcaster that I'm just like, well, I'm not wise, but I'm a wizard because I want it to be able to have like a plus in charisma. So I made that decision to be really bad at perception, like that kind of stuff, or be really bad at will saves. And you know what? It gives some variance to it because I've had characters where I've had like all pluses in all of my stats, and it just not. It's like, well, I could play dozens of characters with all pluses in all my stats, but there's only I can think about the ones that I've put the 8 in strength, and the ones that I've put the 8 in charisma or 8 in intelligence, and I'm like, oh yeah, those guys. You know what? I'd say out of all the stats, I tend to not dump Constitution. I don't think I have had a character yet that has dumped Constitution. Without being a race that gets +2 to it, and then I'd have a 10. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I have not ever put something that I get a negative in Constitution in 5th edition. That's like the stat I will not dump.
Question for you specifically.
Okay.
Jonathan Chappelle said at Nerdarchy, do you think 5th edition Psionics is way overpowered, balanced, or underwhelming? Personally think self-healing from using abilities is kind of overpowered. That is the Mystic Madness, I assume.
All right. So current Mystic. This is kind of hard for me because I really love Psionics. And I like that they start at Mystic. I'm not really pleased, like a lot of people are, with what they've got so far. But I see that like what they have so far is not going to be the end. But I'm wondering, is it not going to be the end because enough people said this is no good, we can't do it, we can't have it this way? Or is it not being the end because that's just like where they were and they were going to manage it further? So I'm wondering how much player feedback they're getting. How much player feedback is helping them decide whether or not the mechanic's going to stay the way it is or get changed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So right now I'm kind of in this weird spot where I want to see Psionics happen in 5e, like official rules, but I don't really feel like. Okay, so a good example is you've got Paladin smiting.
Mhm.
Something that can be more powerful than Paladin smiting probably shouldn't exist. Do you know
It's
what I mean?
pretty gross.
So
It's pretty gross.
as an idea that you can take a certain amount of points and spend it around, and that's based on your level and mystic, and then you can say, well, I apply these points all in one go on something, and really just
The alpha strike problem.
like, yeah, alpha strike out some damage. I like that, but I don't like it because the alpha strike is more powerful than the alpha strike of things that are the alpha strikers. Like, the Paladin has a lot of you could consider it a tank, but you could also consider it a striking class, like a striker class. It's a little bit, it can take some hits, but it is a more of a striker fighter. But it also has the variability of all the spells, so it's got a lot of options. And
So-
I think it's one of the most powerful classes. You
So
can't make something be better than that at dealing out damage with punching or hitting with hitting with a sword.
Ooh, okay. You know what? I was gonna go in a different direction, but Jonathan Chappelle asks a really good question, and I'm actually interested in your answer as well.
Okay.
But I have kind of a counter to this question. What feedback would you suggest to balance or improve them?
This is a 5-hour Nerdarchy After Dark discussion. I'm going to start there
But
for
you know,
Psionics. But okay,
yeah,
so
we do have top secret ninja. Am I not allowed to? Can I just build hype and
wait.
people?
Oh, don't make it seem like someone from Wizards of the Coast is talking to me about Psionics. That is not happening. Like, legit, that's not happening.
No. I'm talking about the thing that we were.
Yeah, I don't think it's any secret to people who know what's on the website that I had made a Psionics class 2 years ago, just because I wanted to see it done. So I took the rules set as they were, and I said, well, what can look like Psionics? What can look like a psychic warrior type thing? What can look, and like there's stuff already there. I took Sorcerer and I just used the meta magic concept and I just added my own kind of features, and I just made them have a spell pool instead. And it was like really simple stuff, all things within the rule set as it currently is. So I wasn't like stretching the boundaries of things. But you know what? It's because I wanted to actually play it. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
They wanted to make. I understand that they want to make Mystic something really cool and kind of otherworldly feeling, and it's definitely like every time they build something like that, they go, well, this can't just be a reskinned Paladin. It's got to be something different.
Or reskinned. Yeah.
Or reskinned XYZ things. Sorcerer, reskinned Druid, all this kind of stuff. And that's kind of what I did a little bit and then made my own things to go along with it. So they wanted to do something, from what I understand. I am not in their heads, but from what I'm seeing, they wanted to do something that was kind of had that otherworldly far realm feel. And that's going to stretch the mechanics. And when you do that, sometimes you break them. And I feel like when you look at certain parts of the Mystic, you say to yourself, well, this is like the Four Elements monk, but better.
Yeah.
And then you say, well, this is kind of like the Paladin, but better at certain things. And the certain things you're better at should not be slamming out damage, because that unbalances how those things work. So if you're better at slamming out damage, okay, you can only do it a certain amount of times. Well, when everything's dead, it doesn't matter that you can only do it 3 times. You murdered everything that was powerful. And then the Paladins can clean up the rest. You slew the super uber thing with your uber smites. And everybody else can deal with the rest, the leftovers. But you got to take a nap. You might as well just go and sleep in the back of the wagon for the next 8 hours because you're useless. So I don't like that. I don't feel like the stretching of it should have been dealing more faster by expending more. That
And
shouldn't have
the
been
thing
way.
I was referring to earlier was the thing that we stayed up one night talking about. Is that not a topic open for discussion?
We're
that still
not
top
in the last
secret?
10 minutes of the thing, unless you want to say what you want to talk about next Friday. Well, actually, next Friday, I want to say that it's the 23rd, I think. Next Friday is Ted's RPG crate game. So go check that out instead. It starts, I think, a bit earlier in the day.
Yeah.
It's still an evening game, Eastern Standard Time, but it'll be somewhere on the schedule. If you look at when the last one started, it most likely will be the same time slot. But yeah, next Friday we're not going to have it. So maybe we could prep for two Fridays from now, doing a Psionics discussion.
First, two comments. One is Alexi said, Nate's Psionic inspired me to make my own Psionic class. That is awesome.
Great. I'm glad to hear that, because I wanted to do it in such a way that you could see, anybody could see what I did to the mechanics, what I used within the rule set to make a completely different flavored concept. So awesome. I'm glad to hear it. That was, aside from make Psionics, that was one of the things I wanted to do with my Psionic build, is because it's so vastly different from the other classes, I wanted to show you how you could make something vastly different on the outside and still fall within the mechanics system that's present.
And then Aaron Parks had a question, and this is kind of a thing already. Aaron Parks said, have you thought about putting all the homebrew you all have done into its own book? Those are Patreon rewards right now, so people can just kind of already go get that.
Well, I mean, you can sign up for Patreon rewards and get them, but okay, so there's a few things. One of the things we do at Nerdarchy is we tend to use things for multiple purposes, and over the years, I've made a lot of stuff, either on the website, and you can check it out for free there. I mean, my old Psionics is there for free. I would say after 2 years of looking back at it, I'm like, there's stuff I would change differently, and there's archetypes that have come around that would probably be better choices for certain things to build off of to make Psionics. But where's I going with this? So overall with that, there's a lot of stuff on the website. You should really just dive into that if you want to look at homebrew stuff.
Seriously.
Type in Homebrew 5e or 5e Homebrew on the Nerdarchy site, and you will probably have way too much stuff to read. Another thing I did was a homebrew thing I did Eaters of the Dead, which was like a ghoulish barbarian. I did Vampire Kin, which was like people that have kind of a vampiric curse but aren't vampires. Which was why I called them Vampire Kin. And I did Forbidden Secrets, like trying to be a lich, basically. And like what that would look like, what becoming a monster as a class would look like. And vampires were monks. Vampire Kin were based off monks. I mean, you jump fire, you can smash people around, you can grapple them, you can do all that kind of stuff. And it was just blood points instead of Kai, Ki, whatever points. Barbarians, well, I was thinking, someone asked me about Tokyo Ghoul, if you're familiar with that. So Tokyo Ghoul is an anime, and they have a particular type of style of ghoul, what they think is ghoul. I was like, well, what if you had like this kind of, you took a berserker and kind of transformed that and made it more like it's a ghoul, and rather than become like a epic hero that you develop into this crazy larger than life character as a barbarian, well, instead of that being your skill and your development and all that kind of stuff, well, it's like, no, you're just more powerful because you're a stronger ghoul. And that was the idea. It's basically, rather than, character levels, it's like, well, your monster is just progressing in its awesomeness. Like a Vampire Kin is just becoming more vampiric. That's why it can run circles around people. That's why it can slap around people and it does a lot of damage. That's why it can jump and climb and do all this other kind of crazy stuff. It's not because it's a monk and is trained. It's because it's just a supernatural creature. So that's all. And it was just small tweaks that changed things and transformed it into Vampire Kin, transformed it into the Eaters of the Dead, and to the School of Forbidden Secrets. So, yay Tokyo Ghoul! Thank you, Mr. L. I agree. Yay Tokyo Ghoul.
Snicklegit has a question that I'm not positive we can knock out in 6 minutes. We have 6 minutes left. What do you think of bards? I know a lot of GMs hate them as they have more potential to mess with the intended campaign direction. I really think that's more, my personal opinion is that's very GM centric. It depends on the games master. My game direction is, here's a setting, here's some things happening in the world, go. You pick what you want to do. You go make your own story, make your own adventure. I have things happening around you, and if you choose to be involved with them, cool, we'll tell that story. If you don't choose to be involved with them, go do something else. So it's very, very hard to derail a campaign like that with anything a bard could do.
Well, yeah, especially if you're doing a lot of player agency stuff, they're kind of developing the story on their own. Okay, so I don't hate bards. I like them. I don't think they're I don't think they're the most powerful class. I don't think. I guess what my issue with them would be, they have got a lot of manipulation powers. They're almost like Fey musicians in a lot of ways. Like, they've got that kind of classical. They have a lot of classic story element of their powers, and their ability to charm, their ability to enthrall, those kind of things. So I don't know. I haven't been derailed from a bard yet. And I've got a really spicy one in one of my campaigns who does really unexpected things. Currently, he is using a hammock strewn in between a floating box that holds 100-pound adamantium rod in it. And he has made that into his, Tensor's Floating Disc pack horse. So it looks as if, this... yeah. So you give him a strange magic item, you're like, here, it carries it around. Isn't that cool? You don't have to carry a 100-pound adamantium rod around. And he turned it into a coach. so you give that type of player something, and they're going to transform your game. A player playing a bard, a type player like that playing a bard, that's going to transform your game. And I say, great, I think that's going to be a cool experience. Now, if you're getting kind of because you don't, because of the different powers they have and different spells they have access to, well, that's a point where you can say, well, sometimes they're just going to shine. When they can hypnotic pattern, and when they can enthrall and mass suggester, all that kind of stuff, when they get high
levels.
Good.
Players need the opportunity to shine.
Yes. Now, if he shines too much, just put in things that he can't do that to. And then your warriors are going to have to slog it out. Or you can just say, well, you can only affect so many stinking people with this power. So guess what? There's twice as many people that you would, and then he takes care of the ones. It's just like wizards and fireballs. You don't gripe that they've got fireballs. You just put in twice as many goblins that can't be killed all in one shot. Right? We're looking behind the curtain at the end of this. Yeah. DM secrets. Nate's DM secrets here.
Just more. Just add more.
Yeah.
How many did he kill in one go? Just add more. They're goblins.
They're goblins. Of course there's more. It wouldn't be an epic fight if there wasn't twice as many goblins as you thought there were. Attacking waves, all these kind of things. We've got plenty of videos on talking about that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't think bards are out of. I like them a lot. I like their jack of all trades stuff. I like a lot of what bard is. And sometimes they're the party saver. So you need a guy like that you need a guy or gal like that's gonna be party saving every once in a while.
So we had two questions in chat. Pet Shop said, question, how do you handle villains as in their stat blocks? Do you do that early or later in the story as they're around the range to fight them? We have two Nerdarchy After Dark videos that you can find on YouTube where we go into extensive discussion about that.
But not all encompassing discussion.
Not all encompassing, because we're not done with that topic. And then Justin Eastham, thank you, sir, said, thank you guys for having this stream. How often do you do these? This is the first one I've seen. Great discussion. We do Monster Mash on Thursday. We do Nerdarchy After Dark on Friday. And on Sunday, we do world building. All three of which are incredibly weird usually. They get derailed. And we talk about things we weren't supposed to be talking about, and we prefer to blame chat for that. That's
yes.
what we're going with right now.
Hey, when you want to serve the audience and you're trying to answer a question, sometimes you go into strange places. I swear I didn't think I was going to talk about Psionics besides saying I was sad it wasn't in the rule book. I swear. Yeah. But exactly. You've done it to me, chat. But thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation. So
and one more time, Ted's game is next Friday.
Yes. So aside from certain things and hiccups, and when I go to conventions, we're doing Sunday, Thursday, and Friday, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you can catch us then, great. Otherwise, it'll be for viewing for later, so you can still you can still hear the topic of discussion. You can still hear about the questions we're answering and the discussion we're having. So And then, you know, certain points like Ted's games on once a month on Fridays as of right
Yeah.
now. So there's 1 week that we skip, and that will be next Friday. And we just skipped a whole week of Sunday, Thursday, Friday when I went to a convention.
But we'll only be skipping Friday. We'll still have the Monster Mash on Thursday.
Yes.
We'll still have World Creation on Sunday.
Yep.
And we are now using World Anvil, right?
Yes, we're using World Anvil, which we're still newbies at, but we've got a bit of info from Demetrius and Janet. So we've been kind of training ourselves to get better at it. And there's a lot of features in it, so I'm still exploring. And it's neat because every time I get back into it, I'm like, oh, I wonder if this can do this. And normally it's able to do it, which is really handy. So we'll be using that to keep our notes for world building. So later you'll be able to check it out. We'll be using that to keep our notes for our Monster Mash. So later you'll be able to check that out on the Nerdarchy's World Anvil page, which is Ulfganya, Ulthe. You could just start off with that. You should be able to find it.
Yeah, I know. The name. Why is the name?
That name is very old, sir. Extremely old. My
Extremely
children, none of my children were alive back when this world was named.
Older than dirt back when we had Ulfganya. I used to walk uphill both ways to go to school every morning. 4 feet of snow.
Hey, if you've never had 5 magic walls dropped on your party at once, you don't know the pain of the old Ulfganya. Those third level characters didn't stand a chance.
Okay, so sum it up. Is there a way to sum up tonight?
We like a lot of things about 5e. We've disliked a lot of things. We've disliked some things about 5e. Overall, I'd like to say, with all the rah that you and I have had, I really love the system as a whole.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like the base was good enough that anything I want to really do to it, I can do to it. A lot of people are like, well, it's a combat RPG. It doesn't really have a whole bunch of RP stuff. And I was like, you know what? It's kind of... Okay, one last thing.
Oh, no, he's not done.
I'm doing it. Cutting in to the outro.
Okay.
When I see... I'm like, oh, I'm a duke. I'm playing an NPC, a duke, or whatever. And they're like, oh, we're trying to persuade you and stuff like that. You know what? I'd rather RP all that stuff. And either say yay or nay than, as a DM, rather than rolls decide it, for the most part. I mean, like
that
a roll...
social combat is an entire topic. You just...
Okay,
that is
I would like to discuss this further. And that's one of the things I kind of... Okay, so for people who have a gripe that it's not intricate enough or it's not large enough, which I hear about on the internet sometimes, that it's not robust enough, I'm like, I don't want it to be... Like, I've got social hit points. Do not want that to happen. So I'm glad... I didn't want them to go any further than they did. I kind of would like them to back off. But anyway, overall, I really like 5e. And while I've griped about plenty of stuff, I would not pick another system to play over 5e. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're griping about something that I really love to play. So I'm gonna end it with that, you know.
This is not dead. We are not done with social combat. Social combat will be another conversation.
That's an entire.
We will hit this one. Yeah, this is an entire heated 45-minute long debate between the two of us, I think.
That chat will stretch into at least an hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly. We need to do another Nerdarchy After Dark for this one.
Yes, okay. So real outro. Thank you for watching and joining us. Again, I really enjoy the system, but there were things that kind of struck me as that I didn't like. But hey, you know, play the game that you want to play. Take it, leave it. Add stuff to it, subtract stuff to it, whatever you like. There's tons of optional rules, so I say there's plenty of room for playing your own homebrew game and still falling within the rule sets rather easily. So with that, I'm Nate the Nerdarch. With me I have a nerd, Kienata, and we will have to see you later. So until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.